Hey, welcome to Backyard Bows. I'm Brandon, and it's the launch day for Prime's new bow for 24. We got the RVX, and if you followed recently, you would have seen that top 5 video from last year, and the Revex from Prime was my number one. What goes into that? Technology, quality, and then it all comes down, my personal video just comes down to like comfort, preference, consistency, and that Revex to me was one of the most effortless bows to shoot. I loved from the beginning to the end, from the draw cycle all the way to the shot cycle. It was an enjoyable bow for me, and that's kind of what it came down to get that number one spot. So, you know, when a company finds a great bow, you know, when they produce a great bow, it's hard to just scratch it. Most of the time, they're kind of compounding little things and adding to it, getting feedback from hunters and consumers, and then maybe making a couple minor changes here and there. And that's what they did with the RVX. So we have the same, almost virtually the same bow as the Revex. You have 3 different options and different axle to axle lengths. I went with the 32 just because I loved the Revex 2 so much that I just went right back to that. I thought it was, for a more compact bow, I thought it was one of the best holding bows I've ever put my hands on. So I went back to the 32. They made minor changes in the risers, trying to create a stiffer riser, kind of adding some bridges here and there. They added a Picatinny rail to the front. It looks like they might have made a minor change to the cable guard, but for the most part, you got the same bow. So, which I've been really excited about for 2 reasons. One, we have to sell all the bows that we get in-house. At some point or another, I'm selling them to get new ones in. And every once in a while, I'll sell one, and then I'm like, shit, I wish I wouldn't have sold that. And the Revex was one. It was so early before season, I had to sell it to get new ones in. And then when season came, I was like, I really wish I had that one here to put in the season. And sure enough, they sent me this brand new one, which I'm so excited about. I've got to spend like a week with it. So the Freestyle Shoot and some of that's gonna be a little bit of a cheat. But man, this thing performs awesome. I've absolutely loved every second I've had with it. I got it all dressed up like I'm gonna hunt with it. I got my CBE Trek Pro in there. I love my AA Prophecy rest. I got the Shrewd stabilizer on the front. We got the G5 quiver with some new arrows. So that's something that's gonna be new today. We're gonna add a new arrow into the Freestyle Shoot outside. We got these RIP TKOs. And then we're actually gonna run that hunting arrow that I'm gonna use through the chronograph. So we'll do 4 arrows today in the chrono test. But let's go over the specs. So the specs are almost, again, the exact same. You got 32 inches axle to axle, 6 1/4 inch brace height, about 4.5 pounds. You have draw weight options from 40 to 80. And then you have those 1/2 inch set module going from 26 to 30. So 26 to 30 1/2 inches, and they're a set module. It's not rotating, which I love that. As a bow hunter, I know my draw length. If I was you, Prime always to me seems a little short for me. So if I could go back maybe to a shop, purchase this in a shop, I might have gone with 30.5, but I went with 30. But I have a slight bend in my elbow. But I love the set module system. What it's gonna get you is peak performance at every draw length, as well as a very easy tuning platform. This thing, with the shims that they have in there that are easily popped off, I love the way this whole bow is set up. Once you get it tuned, this thing, it's rock solid. And it wants to stay tuned for longer is kind of what I found. So let's start. We have a nice wide limb pocket and limbs. The limb pocket is one of my favorite. You got those bolts up underneath that go all the way into the top of the limb pocket. This is probably one of the most secure limb pockets that you can find on the market. The riser, like I said, almost the same shape. It kind of has that S-shaped bend to the riser, which I think really plays in to the stability of the bow. That shape of the riser with the center grip kind of working in sync. I love the way this thing feels when it's fully set up. They added a Picatinny rail onto the front and an integrated rest position on the back. As well as, when I mentioned it in the Revex review, they have this hole on the back of the riser, and that's for that tight spot quiver. So again, all of your accessories really inlined, kind of center shotting everything. I love that. I have everything just kind of set up as I would. I'm not even using any of that, but those options are there for the guys who love that kind of stuff. Is it 100% necessary? No. If we're splitting hairs, it probably helps. But I know there's several of us that just kind of run things how we've always ran them. So the cable guard comes down at a slight angle. I did notice that instead of straight out. It has a new dampening system on that cable guard. I love that. This whole setup with the cable guard is one of my favorite as well. I love the dampening system that they have on there. They have it on the cable guard. They have a nice string stop, 2 dampeners down below, and the ones that go between the limbs. Again, really solid. These things are almost right there with Elite to me with the dead in the hand feel. And then moving down, you got these grips. Again, second favorite grip on the market. I love the feel of this grip. I love the lining that kind of keeps your hand nice and warm. They say the longer you grip this thing, the warmer it gets. It kind of protects you, you know, a lining between that cold metal and the actual grip. The shape of it feels really good. I think Hoyts are my favorite, but this comes in right behind them. I love the way this thing feels. I love the center grip. It will feel a little uncomfortable at the beginning, but I promise you, it's like an acquired taste. It will grow on you, and the more you shoot this thing, the more you realize the benefit of having some substance below that grip and kind of to the bottom of that bow. I love the way this thing balances out. You'll see in a second when we do this single shot assessment, it's so stable and clean, that shot cycle. And then again, running down a little bit different bridges. Before we get to the cams, I think one of the best things about these bows this year is they added this new blackout option. And again, I love the way my bows look. This is probably one of the sleekest camo options you can get. It has a solid color that fades to camo into the limbs. They have 2 options. They have this one, which is army green, that goes into that Sitka. And then they have one that's black that fades into, I think, a King's camo. But both of them are just, you might not be able to tell from the camera, but man, in person, this is probably one of the slickest bows I've ever put my hands on. And then going to that cam system, they got the core cams on these, so they carried them over a couple times. They even have them on the new budget. They don't want me to call it a budget style bow because honestly, it really is not. But the new Ronin that they have coming out, which we'll do next, is kind of more their well-priced bow, under $1,000. They didn't cut any corners. They have those core cams on there. That one is going to be another review you're going to want to catch if you're into Prime or even considering them. I think that's one of the best budget bows in the market. Core cams though, I think in the industry, they're probably some of my favorite cams today. You have that set module system. You do have a little let-off play. There's a piece that you can put onto that let-off string stop, which is gonna allow you, I think, a 10% fluctuation all the way in. It's 85, all the way out at 75. And you can kind of tinker with that in between. You got one for top and bottom.
All right, so when talking about the shims, it's gonna come with some extra shims in the box. From the factory, it's going to come with shim 2 and shim 2, totaling 4. The ones that come in the package are a 1 shim and a 3 shim. All you're going to want to make sure and do is that they add up to 4. So if you use a 1 shim on this side, you use the 3 shim on this side, so forth. But the one that it comes with standard from the factory is the 2s. So 2 on this side, 2 on this side. If you put it in a press, there's a tool that you can get this off. I'm not going to say do it, but there is a way to get these off and change the shims without the little tool that they send to the pro shops. But these just pop off once that pressure is relieved without taking that axle out.
But the feel of these cams, you cannot get a more linear draw. I feel like it's just, it's one of my favorite pulls I think I've ever had. It's not effortless. There's a little effort that goes into it, but it's very linear. It reminds me of like a no cam. It has like no valley, but it lets off in the end and it has a really nice hold to it. We're gonna do everything today with these new arrows, which we've done every other review with those Easton Full Metals, but this one we're gonna go with these. The only thing that I don't like, if I can say one thing, they took the option for the quivers out of the riser. I love that Mountain View Archery Products quiver. It kind of adapts and goes from bow to bow to bow. They don't have that option on here anymore, so you can mount it onto the side plate right here, which is what I did with this old G5 quiver, or you have that spot in the back for that tight spot quiver to kind of be really nice and tight up against there. But let's go ahead, let's pull a couple back. And I don't ever know if you guys can see it in the camera, you know, watching review to review, and I don't know if you guys can tell, but gosh, that is just, it's fun to pull back. It just, if you haven't, again, and I've said this with a couple companies. I had a guy the other day said, well, I have never shot a Prime. I don't have the ability to, I don't know. But if you get the ability, do it. Especially if it's one of these past 2 bows from the past couple years. Even the inline was really nice. But that pull is just, Has a really nice dead in the hand feel, which I was telling you about earlier. Really reminds me of those Elites nowadays. Very, very light. The shot cycle is so clean. And then you have this center grip with the riser shape. And then you have this technology that's kind of built into these cams and mods, forcing those cables over up under the string, kind of inlining all of that. It sets up without any back bar stabilizer, just like this, it sets up for a really nice stable platform, especially for a nice compact bow. It's just the smoothest pull. Super clean shot cycle, effortless. And look at this. So, and this is another controversial thing. This bow wants to sit just like this, even all dressed up. With the center grip, it has so much weight underneath it, it kind of just stands straight up like this. And if you watch this next shot, there's no follow through, which some people think is necessary. Or maybe it's just something they're so familiar with, it's hard to kind of go to something different. This bow doesn't have a follow through. It just sits right there. Which that right there is just the smoothest to me. I love that. And then it just sits right here. Okay, it doesn't want to go forward. The balance of this bow, which I also think plays into the torque. You know, that bow just sits perfectly in your hand from beginning to end. Again, the more you shoot something, the more comfortable again. And I've had this in my hand for a week. But just with the Revex, I remember some of these same things that just stood out to me that I enjoy more and more and more the more I shoot it. And I think one of the other reasons why the Revex got #1 from last year is because I felt so comfortable with it right from the beginning. Even not shooting a ton of primes or the center grip being a little bit foreign to me, that bow just felt so good from the beginning. And this one, when I picked it up the other day, you saw on the reel I made, those first shots out at 40, I was just, I mean, it's just on the money. Every shot you get better and better and better so quickly. Let's go outside. Let's go shoot a whole bunch. We got a beautiful day. This is what we're taking in the field. I am going to run it with these RIP TKOs, and I have a couple in here. I got those G5, so we're gonna run a full G5 setup for this next hunt. We're back to hunting bucks. We're gonna do those mega meats, 300 spine, RIP TKOs, the new RVX 32. Man, this is kind of stuff that makes me excited. All right, so freestyle shoot. I've been freestyle shooting this thing for the past week. So I got this thing dialed in pretty good. Like I mentioned before, I'm gonna use these different arrows, which is something new that we'll do to this review that will separate it from others. We'll shoot at everything, and in a second, I'll show you kind of how I have my sight set up and you know, how I set up my sight that I hunt with, which is gonna be, you know, we'll see what the online archery coaches say here in a second about it, but it's kind of what I've done for years. So we'll go bore, it's at 25. We got these bucks at 30, which is that's what I'll set my top pin at, is 30. I love the way these arrows have been flying. Look out for the review on these. It'll be kind of like one of the first reviews of arrows that we've done here in-house. I have used those full metal jackets for as long as I can remember. So I've used several other arrows, but once I found the full metal jackets by Easton, I kind of stuck with those for years. But we've had so many of you recommend these that we're gonna kind of bounce around and test a couple different arrows out to finish off the end of this season. So let's go to the other buck that's quartering to me. Now let's go over to the other side and we'll get some longer range shots. All right, so what I was mentioning earlier is the way I set up my sight is I'll set up the top pin at 30 yards. I'll have a 40-yard pin and a 50-yard pin. Anything between 40 and 16 yards, I'll use that top 30 pin. I just make adjustments from muscle memory in my head. So if it's a buck at 16 yards, I'm shooting below his belly, getting heart. If he drops, we're getting heart lung. 30 yards is on the money. 35 yards is a hair high, you know, kind of a double lung. Usually gets to the heart And that's just kind of how I set up my sight. I know it's going to drive some of you crazy. I was talking about all these online archery coaches, which I'm not being arrogant. I've learned a ton from the viewers, and I love all the feedback, but man, especially Facebook, there's a ton of you. We'll go turkey at 20. I'm telling you, the hold on this, I love from the very beginning you get it back to when you release it. It's just, I mean, I feel like I have so much confidence in that heart shot, kind of that low, you know, right behind the shoulder, real nice and low. A lot of people like to go center mass because that's where they feel comfortable. So now we'll go to that wolf at 35. And again, I'm using that same top pin for all of these. It's just kind of muscle memory. Somebody would probably hate that. They want their 20 pin, their 30 pin, their 40 pin. I go 30 pin, make adjustments. So now we're gonna switch our pins. We'll go 40-yard pin on that black bear. I don't know if you saw that reel the other day, but I knocked out the core and then shot one between his legs. It just, and those were the first shots at 40 that I had used with this bow. Some bows from the beginning, just, that's where you can really tell stability. It's like, man, this is effortless. It's like the bow does the work, makes you seem like a good archer. So let's go black bear, 40. We'll shoot a couple at that 40. I've been loving shooting at that black bear. Now we'll go full draw stall on that Paddington, the little black bear. We'll go 1 minute with one shot. So that actually got a little tough towards the end. I've been shooting pretty quick reps here, but I haven't really taken much of a break, but that kind of got a little tough at the end, but still the bow kept its stability pretty good. So now let's jump up to our elk at 50. We'll go inside, run it through that chronograph test. We'll also do the hunting arrow that I'm gonna use today. These ones that I've been shooting, we'll run one of those through the chronograph too, so you see what we can get with that, what I'm gonna take into the field. But let's do these last shots at 50. All right, so it's been tough not being able to shoot a buck since opening day. I was lucky enough to get over into Illinois and get another one, but just to kind of feed that side of me, I actually saw one of these bucks I'm after about 52 yards the day I got that doe, and it just killed me just to watch him kind of mosey by. So I got a really nice wide 8, a gnarly old buck with just trash and shit everywhere. And then I got a really nice big 7-point I'm after. So a whole bunch on the board. We'll be out there tonight. Again, rifle season. We'll be on private land tonight, wearing our orange with our bow. But let's go. We'll go elk 50. I will say, I think so 30 inches, the 30-inch mods on these feels a hair short. And that will vary from company to company. So if you're just a set draw length, just make sure you try it. And if you need to purchase another one, or, you know, when you're in the shop, shoot that. If it, you know, your 29.5 that you're normally doesn't feel right, maybe get an extra 1/2 inch. So I might go 30 1/4, I mean a 30.5. You know, with this bow, or prime, I think in general, to me, I feel like is a hair short, but kind of walk our way over. Overall, I think the bow is, I love it just as much as the Revex. I don't think there's anything about these that I personally have a complaint about. They are just as rock solid as you can get. And that's coming from somebody who like I haven't shot a ton of primes. I'm not a prime guy. I've jumped on board recently, and what I have found I've loved. So it's coming from somebody on the complete end of the spectrum who grew up with Matthews in his hands. So, and again, I always talk about this, but I love that's where we are today, because if you go out and venture out, I think you will be pleasantly surprised at some of these bow companies and what they're doing. But yeah, so I've shot this a ton this past week. Those are the first shots at 50. Let's go ahead. We're going to shoot one more. And I got one of those G5 practice heads on here, which I love too. Those that come with those mega meats, which is what we're going to be running on here. A quick 50. I mean, it dials down real nice. And again, I'm going to shoot with this a bunch. We'll keep putting it into the daily reps. I'm going to keep putting it into the field until we get something. I'm going to be back on bucks today. Stay tuned, because I think one of these big boys. We're prime time rut here in Missouri. Every time we would take a break during this review, I'd check my phone. The stealth cameras are just shooting me pictures of bucks chasing. So we're right in the middle of it. So let's go inside. Let's get a speed test and a sound test, and then we'll give you our final thoughts. All right, so we're going to do something a hair different today. I'm going to shoot a 4th arrow, and I'm going to shoot the arrow that I'm going to hunt with. Let's go ahead and we'll do our arrow that we're going to do the test with first, which is a 300 spine full metal jacket. This is the same one that we've done the test with for the past 2 years, and this is a 500 grain arrow. So we'll do a 500, a 440, a 560, and then the arrow that I'm going to hunt with, which is that Victory, that arrow is 473 grains. So a nice variation of arrow weights today. So 273. The IBO of the Revex got 335. I think this is right in there. So it's 273. Let's go ahead and shoot this heavier arrow, which is a 560 grain arrow. And I know we've talked about this a ton, but man, the more I've done this and the more feedback I've gotten, the more I realize that guys really jump around with that arrow weight. That's 266. There was a guy on the comments the other day that said he was shooting with like a 360 grain arrow at my draw length and my poundage. Again, I don't know how he's getting that light of an arrow or why. Again, to everybody, and he said he's been using it, it's not a problem for him. So, but man, it really varies. So here we go, 440 grain. That's 290. Now we're gonna shoot, so I got some RIP TKOs, okay? These have that nice outsert in the front, 100 grain field point. I got some AAE Max veins on the back. It's wrapped, has a really nice FOC, 473 grains. I'm gonna run these with the Mega Meats. So we're gonna have a full G5 setup. So that's 287. And again, I'm all about 280. So to me, that's perfect. These things have been flying great outside. So I'm excited about this whole setup that we're gonna take into the field and be able to get some feedback on all of this. But 273, so it gets a 7 out of 10 for the speed test. So now we'll do our sound test after last week's review and the comments I said. I always know what's gonna piss people off, but they did not like those comments about how sound doesn't factor in until out to 40 with the bows nowadays with the speeds that they're getting. People had a lot to say. So again, every 91 or 90.1, everybody has their own opinion. There are very few people that have the years and years and years of experience and kind of backing, you know, testing, you know, and if you find somebody that does, you know, go ahead to take everything into consideration and listen and soak it all up. And I feel like that's, you know, that's the best part, but kind of like passing knowledge down. But for those of you who don't have that experience, and again, I feel like I'm right in the middle. I still listen to anybody who has anything to give me feedback wise about hunting, bows, etc. I'm all ears. But I also do my homework and I field test a lot of this stuff. So again, to me, 88.6. So this is right there on the quieter side. I think the Revex was too, which makes sense, but this was on the lower end of the decibels that we've been seeing, 89.7. So that's awesome. So again, that's just icing on the cake right there. Nice and quiet. It got some great speeds, especially with the arrow I'm about to put into the field. It's really nice and stable. You can't get a slicker looking bow. Again, I don't have no complaints from me. All right, final thoughts, grade, Prime RVX 32. Again, the blackout option, the faded colored, solid color to camel option, you can't beat it. This is one of the prettiest bows I think I've ever had. I love this, and you know me, I love this Sitka, that subalpine. So I'm gonna run that, run this with that, Sitka setup I have, and this just looks awesome. So let's go right from the bat, 273. Okay, I think a little slower in-house than the Revex was. So 7 out of 10 right there with my 500 grain arrow, 30 inches of draw at about 85% let off. So, I mean, great speeds. I think the arrow that I'm gonna actually run in the field, the RIP TKO, 300 spine, I'm gonna run these Mega Meats by G5 on there. I mean, I'm gonna let this thing eat. This thing was up in the, the 287s, which is perfect for that speed. But for the grading arrow, 7 out of 10. Quality and durability, I think this to me matches, the Hoyts. I'm telling you, these Prime bows, I think that's something that they do incredible in. It is the quality. And what I can't wait is for you to see the Ronin, which is their new budget bow. They don't want me to call it a budget bow, but it's, the lesser priced bow, get more bang for your buck, ROI type bow. They didn't cut any corners. It's incredible. I don't understand how the price points work, but the Ronin is an exceptional bow. It's like the Quest on steroids, and it's very, very well priced, and that's the bow we'll do next, so stay tuned for that one. But the quality on these is exceptional. 9 out of 10 there, 10 out of 10 for the appeal, simply because of that blackout camo option. This thing is just as sleek as you can get. Technology, I gave it an 8, and I know I'm gonna whack, some people might disagree with this because of the non-rotating module and stuff like that, but I think the center grip, the grip itself, the entire inlining of the bow, including the technology that goes into the cam systems, moving those cables and strings in sync, I think that's technology in itself worth mentioning and that I love. So, and that's what stands out to me the most when doing the freestyle shoot. And I think that's what is that comfortable, consistent feeling that you're getting is from all of that kind of working in sync. So I love that personally. It has grown on me more and more and more and more, this center grip. And then performance, I gave it a 9 out of a 10. And again, I think as you get to the 34 and the 36, you're gonna get more stable. I'm 30 inches and this is a 32-inch axle to axle right there pushing what I think would be an ideal bowstring angle. And this thing held to me. It's unbelievable how solid these are. And I feel like so many of you, we talk about Prime, and that it might not even be on some of your radar still. Get it on your radar. You will be pleasantly surprised. Maybe not the first shot, but after about a dozen arrows, it's all it takes for that center grip for you to realize the benefits of it. The only thing that I'm gonna complain about, because I've loved that Mountain View archery product quiver, is that they don't have a spot for my quiver. They took that out of the riser. So the only quiver option that you have are the ones that mount onto the side plate of your sight. They don't have the options top and bottom that we've seen on most of these bows. So I can't use my quiver that I like, but they do have that option on the backside there for that tight spot. So that's something that they got rid of that I noticed as well when they kind of redid some of the bridges on the riser going from the Revex to this one. But man, you can't get a complaint out of me. And again, with the 4 cams, the 2 on top, the 2 on the bottom that they used to run, I was the guy that was complaining. So I love the direction that they're heading. I love the changes that they're making. And I love, again, a company that just takes feedback, makes minor changes, re-puts out a good product that is performing, really, really high performing, and kind of just adds to it to get that perfected bow. And I think that's what we're starting to see here with Prime. Love it, love what they're doing. Can't wait, again, just to see what next. I think all around, wait till you see this Ronin. I promise you, you will be shocked. And then we'll do the Ronin, and then we'll do our top 5 budget bows of all time video, and we'll release it. And I wanted to wait on that video because of this Ronin. And honestly, I'll kind of spill the beans. It definitely made the top 5. It is an incredible bow for the price. So hopefully you found something in this review that was helpful to your bow buying process. But make sure you follow us on all of our platforms, and we got Instagram, Facebook that kind of give you updates on what we're gonna do next. We have so much to come. We're just now starting to get more and more stuff in. So we're rocking and rolling. It's the middle of hunting season. It's November. Rut here in Missouri. I can't wait to get this thing out in the field. We will see you maybe a couple Saturdays because I'm gonna get after some hunting.